This is a Sandy Boy Productions podcast.
Welcome to Finish Lines and Milestones, a podcast that celebrates the everyday runner. I'm your host, Allie Bretnacher, and if you run, you are a runner, and every runner has a story. Join me every Friday as I share these stories and we cross finish lines and celebrate milestones together. This week, it is the 4th of July. If you listen to this the day it comes out, I am currently at Lake Wawasee, which is up in northern Indiana, Syracuse, Indiana, to be exact. And tomorrow there is a 4th of July race, or actually today, I will be running a 8-mile 4th of July race. They have I think it's a 3-mile and an 8-mile. I always do the 8-mile. And in past, it has signified like the start of marathon training for me. So I'm about 16 weeks away from the Marine Corps Marathon at the end of October, where I'll be pushing with Ainsley's Angels. So I've been trying to get a lot of pushing somebody or something in my workouts these days, and that made my knee mad. So I'm finally admitting this to you guys. I am going to physical therapy. I told my coach Rachel that I was starting to have pain, and she sent me the name of a guy, and I just waited, and then it wasn't going away. And so, you know, I'm a cliche runner. I don't stretch, I don't do anything. So I eventually caved. Texted her guy. It's Mike Stevens from Apollo Sports Performance. He also sees Amanda Looper, who was recently on this podcast. Anyway, he got me right in, right before I went to Seattle last week. And yeah, he said it was not something that's injured. It's more, I have like a lot of tightness, a lot of tightness. So he's giving me a lot of exercises and foam rolling to do that I am trying my best to do because I don't want to be injured. I don't want to have any pain. So I am doing it. Mike, you probably won't listen to this, but just know that I'm doing it. And then, so for the race, I really hope to get an age group award because they have the funniest stuff. So I don't know, 3 years ago, I got a Pirate Booty inflatable boat that my girls absolutely loved. Last year, I won a lantern, pretty nice lantern, if I may say so, and some other random stuff. And so it's always fun to see what the awards are, and it's my motivation to try to get one. It's also a smaller race, so I have a chance. So I'm excited. And Jordan Huffman, who is one of Rachel Cinder's athletes, will also be there. And so I'm really excited to see Jordan and perhaps run with Jordan a little bit. So we shall see, but stay tuned. I bought this American flag sports bra and shorts from Chicken Legs for the run. So I will be all decked out. I will at least look really good, even though it's going to be hot and I'm sure I won't feel good. Okay, and so leading into this week's episode, because my guest this week has run this race, Western States was last weekend, and Shay Aquilano, who was on this podcast, I forget the number off the top of my head, but go listen to that episode. Shay is just wise beyond her years. She finished 16th. She was really hanging with the top 10 for, up until like mile 85 or so. And then she said she, I think, walked a majority of the final miles. But man, she's now a Nike athlete. Like this girl, I told her it's recorded on the episode. Go back and listen, that she's going places. So without further ado, my guest this week is Jason from Run Try Bike. He is the founder of this amazing digital media platform. They also have a podcast network with a ton of shows that we'll talk about during this episode. But I've known him, at least virtually, for a number of years. I've had on a couple of his colleagues on this podcast. You'll hear me talk about that. And so I finally got to sit down with Jason and get to know him. And his vulnerability and just his positive attitude is something that you just got to get to know him. It's so good. Jason and I, during this episode, talk about how we know each other, how he's moved 4 times in the last 4 years, the story behind Run Try Bike, how it was started, everything about it. We talk about his relationship with food and also sobriety. So talk about the vulnerability part. And then he is also a lecturer, a business law lecturer at a local university. And we talk about community and building community and what that means to Jason, which is also something that I'm super passionate about. So, and we also talk about why we love the everyday athlete, because we do. We love you, and you're the reason we do this. So thank you so much for listening to this week's episode with Jason Bahamundi. All right, finally, I have Jason Bahamundi on the podcast. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's been a long, long road to get here.
Yeah. So I had to look back to see when Ohm was on the podcast. get this, he was episode number 12.
Wow.
And I'm going to launch episode, 112, I think, this week or next, which is just crazy.
That is amazing.
So
congrats to you, by the way. That's phenomenal. That's really phenomenal.
thank you. Thank you. As you know, it's a labor of love.
It is.
Yep. And you've got now, how many? 9 shows in the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network?
8 active and 1
Okay.
quasi-dormant that shows up when my wife decides, hey, I want to record a podcast.
Perfect. That's so many shows. But there's so many athletes out there.
There's so many, I don't know if you have this scenario, but like I oftentimes have massive imposter syndrome, and I will see somebody on your show and I'm like, why are they talking to her and not to me? And then I realized there's like millions of people. We couldn't have enough shows to talk to this many people.
1,000%. Yeah, you and I are both competitive. And so I've had the same thoughts. I'm like, okay, how can I do this? They're just crushing it. They've got so many shows, so many cool people. And that's the thing. There's too many cool people out there. Like we can't tell the stories enough and fast enough. So yeah, it's so much fun to be in your orbit. And I love what you're doing with Run, Try, Bike and your network and everything else. And I can't wait to actually get to meet you finally and get to know you better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate those kind words. It's, and you said it earlier, it's a labor of love, right? So oftentimes you might go days without a comment or anything, and you get down on yourself, or at least I do. I get down on myself.
Yes.
Is what I'm doing worth it at all? And then all of a sudden you get that one email, and I'm like, for your audience, I am telling you, people, make a comment. You have no idea how good that makes us feel, that somebody takes, 30 seconds to type in, loved the show, Allie was really funny, great guest. Like, that's it. Copy paste it if you have to, for all I care. But do it, because it makes such a huge difference.
It does. Thank you for saying that, because it's true. You're like, did anybody listen this week? Like, nobody said anything.
Right.
And you're like, does anybody care? I don't know. Maybe. My mom cares. At least I know my mom's going to listen. So, at least there's that. But why is it that the negative comments will haunt you for years? Why is that?
Well, A, we're competitive, right?
Yeah.
We want, and B, we're still human beings. We want to be liked. I mean, that's really the gist of it. And we can tell ourselves all day, every day, and twice on Tuesday, I just don't care what the negative person says. It hurts. I mean, you put a lot of time and effort into this shit, and you work to get it just right, and posting schedules and all of these different little things. And then somebody's like, this episode sucked. That guest was horrible. And like,
cool.
Right. Here's the thing, people. For those of you who want to be negative, you want to crap on me as a guest, that's cool. But do this. The same 2 thumbs that you use to type the negative, scroll past it.
Yeah.
Literally scroll past it.
Yeah, there's so much content. Yeah. Oh, I don't know why it bothers me as much as it does. But yeah, like you said, we're humans. Like, we want people to like us. We want people to like what we're doing. And, the nature of it is that people just aren't. So that's fine too. I've started to jump on the Mel Robbins bandwagon with the let them theory stuff. And whether you like her or you don't like her because, she stole the theory, I don't know all that drama. But what I do know is that it's such a simple thing that's helped me a lot. You can't control what other people think. And no matter how hard you work, no matter how good your content is, somebody's going to shit all over it.
So, nailed it.
Yep. So, there we are. So we've known each other, at least virtually, for, it had to be like a couple years. If Ohm was episode 12.
I would say probably close to 3 years at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I've certainly been following you guys since then, since we, stumbled across each other on the internet. And then I recently had Joe Harden, who's also in your network on the podcast. He was episode 92. So and now I don't know what number episode you're going to be, but it's been a long time coming, too long.
It has to end in 2, because if almost 12 and Joe was 92, then I have to be at least 122. You can delay it. Hit the delay.
Right. Yeah. Just have to get a delay it so that it works out perfectly. And I'm like, look at this perfect thing that we didn't plan at all. So tell people where you are sitting right now. Where do you live? And then we'll talk about where you're originally from as well.
So where do I live right now is a great question, because I have moved 4 times in the last 4 years, almost exactly 1 year to the day for the last 4 years. So we are currently in West Hollywood, Los Angeles, California right now. And I absolutely love it. It's a city. I can walk to the grocery store. Like, I'm a city kid. So to answer your question, I'm born and raised in New York, and I love New York City, and I love being able to just walk around everywhere. Like, Yesterday, Lori said, "Oh, I need to get a pair of scissors." And I was like, I'll go because 7-Eleven is right around the corner. I could just walk to 7-Eleven. They didn't have it. So I walked, a half mile to the grocery store to find a pair of scissors and back. And it was just get out on the city streets and walk. So the long answer to your question was that. The short answer is we live in West Hollywood.
West Hollywood. It sounds so glamorous.
Yeah,
I've been, but it's been a long time. I think I went to LA for spring break in college my junior year, or maybe senior year.
The amazing thing about this area is there are apartment buildings and there is city streets and there's graffiti and there's all of that stuff, which I absolutely love. And then you make a left turn and then there's this opulent house. And you're like, where did this come from? Right? Like, and this beautiful palm tree lined streets, and it's amazing. It's quiet. People are walking their dogs. It is an eclectic neighborhood for sure.
And where do you run these days? From where you live?
So I literally the other day I ran my first 4.5 miles around here. I ran down Sunset Boulevard and made a left, and then down Santa Monica Boulevard. So literally the song, going down Santa Monica Boulevard. Literally ran down Sunset and Santa Monica. And then there's a trail here. Runyon Canyon is about a half mile from here. So I can get some vert on the Runyon Canyon. They have a dirt trail and they have a paved path. So it's like a 5K that you can go up the dirt path and down the paved section and get some, I think it's like 1,200 feet of vert in like 3 miles. So for that trail run training, you'll get that stuff too.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the term vert, it must be like a trail runner, ultra runner
100%
term. And so for people who are listening to this, who are like, what the hell does he mean by vert? It's elevation, like hilliness. Yeah. If you want to like work that side of your muscles. Yeah. I live in Indiana and where Joe lives, and it's pretty flat, but we do have some places you can go to get some hills.
He just said that he did the Mohican 100 and he said it was crazy hilly at the Mohican 100. And I don't know if that's in comparison to where he lives in Indiana, but I mean, he said there was quite a bit of elevation gain at the race.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's where, Ohio?
I have no idea.
I don't know. Yeah. I think it's in the Midwest somewhere. Okay. But yeah, in our state, like where we live here, it's like flat as a pancake. And then down southern Indiana, there's actually quite a few hills to speak of. So if people really want hills, they go down to the southern part of the state. There's like some pockets of parks that have hills around here, but nothing like you have out west. That is for sure.
There's a ton of stuff out here. When we lived in Thousand Oaks, which is a suburb of LA, we would be able to get down to like the Malibu area fairly quickly, to the Malibu Canyon, and run through Mugu State Park and all of that stuff where tons of trails are. And so there's a lot of elevation that you can get in that area. And then you get to see the Pacific Ocean when you finally get to the top, and it's ridiculously gorgeous.
Yeah, I'm so jealous. So why did you move most recently? Was it because of the fires? I know that was certainly right by home for you.
Yeah, the fires when we were in Thousand Oaks were close by, and it was nerve-wracking to live through that experience. I'd never had it before, and it was crazy. But so Thousand Oaks is a suburb of LA, and everything you have to do is a car ride. And like I said, I would much rather walk everywhere. And so we moved down here, and we parked our car a week ago, and I think we've moved it twice since. And it's phenomenal, right? It's so when it comes to for me, it was a quality of life type of thing. We lived in Seattle before we moved to LA, and I actually sold my car within a month of living in Seattle. We lived downtown, didn't own a car for a year, and it was glorious. Have you ever heard of Zipcar?
I have heard of it, yeah. I've never used it.
So it's great. Like I would rent a car through Zipcar, drive to the mountains, run for a handful of hours, and then drive back and park the car in a designated parking space. And it cost me like $25 or something like that, and I was done with it. So we moved down here recently because of the quality of life for us to walk around the city and not have to drive everywhere for the most part.
And how long have you been in California?
We are almost exactly a little bit over a year. So we're starting year 2 here in California, LA.
Okay. Nice. And you grew up in New York City, like in
a suburb,
the Bronx?
Suburb of New York. Yeah, I was born in the Bronx and lived there until I think I was 12. And we moved to a suburb and lived in the suburbs until I was a young adult. Came back from college and moved to Westchester, which is also a suburb, but a lot closer to Manhattan. I worked in Manhattan for 10 or 12 years. Taking the train in every day, walking from Grand Central to the office, which was at 47th and 3rd. So for anybody who knows Manhattan, it's about a 3, 4 block walk from Grand Central to that area, and I was able to get coffee and bagel on the way over there, or a coffee and a roll
Mm.
on the way over there, and be done with it. That was my commute. I used to sleep on the train, and for us old hats, I actually read a newspaper, an actual newspaper.
Yeah, which is so different. Now you think about your life now with digital media, and how different
It's
is that?
crazy.
That's so crazy. Where did you go to undergrad?
I went to SUNY Oswego. So SUNY stands for State University of New York College at Oswego, which is about 40 minutes north of Syracuse. So if you think about the coldest weather you've ever experienced, double it. It is
Oh.
so brutally cold up there. I remember this, and I just actually told this story. The first semester I was at Oswego, it started snowing in like late September, early October. And I was like, this is bananas. And it just didn't stop. And I remember driving back downstate and telling my parents, I'm not going back there. Like, it's gray, it's cloudy, it's snowing, it's raining, it's sleeting. It's like awful. Like, I don't want to go back there. But the genius of Oswego is they take you as a high school graduate, basically, on the campus tour, right? In June or
Mm-hmm.
July. And it is gorgeous. You're overlooking Lake
Yeah.
Ontario. You're like, this is utopia. Within 3 months of that, you're like, I don't want to go back. I just don't want to be here anymore.
Wow. Well, at least you were coming from New York and not California at
Yeah.
that time, because then you really would have been like, get me the heck out of here.
I can't imagine there's many people that live in California that could find Oswego on a map anyway.
That's true. Well, even me. I mean, I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. Syracuse, New York. Is that, it's got to be, if it's Lake Ontario, it's got to be upstate,
Yeah,
right?
it's north. So
Yeah.
if you go literally almost to the exact center of New York State, you'll find Syracuse, and then just draw a
Okay.
line straight north, and right when you hit the water, you can draw a circle and you'll capture Oswego.
Okay. And in undergrad, did you like get into journalism, like publish any of what you're in now? Like, could you
Yes,
kind of take us through a little bit of your life story, like how the heck you got to now owning a digital publication and media company and
absolutely.
podcast network? Like, it's crazy.
So again, I'm old, and when we went to college, we actually went into a bookstore to buy books. And I remember looking at the bookshelf, and the accounting book was like 3 inches thick, and the marketing book was like an inch thick. And I was like, that's my major, marketing. It's only that book is so much smaller. And so I became a marketing major. And when I graduated college, I jumped right into marketing and advertising. I was a media buyer at a company in New York, and then eventually changed jobs, became went from a media buyer to a media planner to a media sales rep, and then back around to media planner. Like everything was in media, which was essentially buying and selling commercials. That's what I did
Mm.
for 20 plus years. Wound up at the Dallas Morning News selling print for all you kids out there, an actual newspaper. Like I was selling. Here's the funny thing. You want to laugh? I was selling want ads in the Dallas Morning News. Like, when is the last
Wow.
time you could even think of somebody taking a newspaper out and circling it for a job, right? Like, that just doesn't happen.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was selling job ads in the Dallas Morning News, and had a client, Bill Schroeder at Travel Host, and we were managing his social media for Travel Host. And he wound up calling me one day, and he's like, do you like what you're doing? And I'm like, I, yeah, I mean, I get to work with you. It's kind of cool. And he's like, well, would you like to work with me actually, as opposed through an intermediary like the Dallas Morning News? And he hired me at Travel Host. And he lit the entrepreneurial spirit and fire under me, because Bill is a serial entrepreneur.
Mm.
Everything he does has been his own business ever since he was a kid, basically. And he allowed me to run my side of Travel Host on my own. He would, here's your P&L, here's your resources. We'll talk every day and come to me with ideas and all of that awesome stuff. And he taught me so much about running a business. And then the pandemic hit, and we went from these palatial offices. Allie, when I tell you we had floor to ceiling windows overlooking Lake
Oh.
Caroline in Irving, Texas, I mean, it was as gorgeous as a setting as you can imagine. And then one day, shut it all down, move out of the offices, and we wound up
Mm.
in what I like to describe as the basement of the Mexican Chamber of Commerce. Like Bill found,
What?
yes, he found like 3 desks space in
Oh.
the Mexican Chamber of Commerce, and the guy was like, "Yeah, you could pay me X amount of dollars for rent or whatever it was." And so the three of us, Al would be the other guy, moved into this space, right? And so we shared it with the Mexican Chamber of Commerce. Government officials are walking around, and we're in there
Wow.
trying to sell ads and sell markets and everything else. And then one day he gets a phone call from a business broker that says, "Hey, there's a magazine for sale called Texas Runner and Triathlete Magazine. Are you interested?" And Bill said, "I think this phone call is for you." And so I got on the call with the broker and I told him what I would be looking for. And he connected me to the owner. And now the owner was the widow. Her husband had been running the business and he had just passed. And she's like, "I don't know what to do with this stuff. I need to get rid of it." And so I started talking to her, and we couldn't have been further apart than Mars and Earth are when it comes to the negotiations. Like she wanted everything for nothing, and it just there was nothing there. And I got off the phone and I said, "Look, I just can't buy your business. There's nothing there." And she said, "Well, I can't sell it to you for what you're asking." And when I tell you I was offering pennies, I'm not kidding.
Mm.
And I looked at Bill after I got off the phone and I said, "I don't need to buy that business. I can run it on my own. I can start it on my own." And immediately went to work. Just started like, "Here's an idea. Let's start doing this." Because I'd been at that time, so we were talking about 2020. I had been participating in endurance sports, racing and training for 13 years. I started in '07 and
Okay.
had been, the president of a tri club when I lived in Dallas. At that point, I think I'd done already 5 or 6 Ironman events, 5 or 600 milers, had started a run club in North Texas as well. And so, talking to people about these sports was easy. And having a background in selling, advertising, and media was easy. Having been a part of a company that put together magazines was easy. So I just took all of those different pieces and parts of my history and decided to start a company. But I wanted to do it differently than what other people had been doing it. And this is not to crap on other media publications, but I don't need the 90,000th article on how to heel lock my shoes anymore, right? Like I understand that beginners and may not understand it, but I don't need it anymore. And I know that the people that I have been training and racing with weren't reading these articles. As
Mm-hmm.
glorious of a runner as Des Linden and Kara Goucher are, as amazing triathletes as Jan Frodeno and Daniela Rief are, I don't need another article about, what they're doing. And the reason is I'm not them. I like
Right.
I can't I'm not running a 6 minute mile. I'm not finishing an Ironman in 7 hours. So none of that stuff was relatable to me in that way. It's awesome to
Right.
see. It's no different than me watching professional baseball or basketball, right? Amazing athletes, totally appreciate the entertainment, but it's just not anything I can do. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to start a publication for everyday athletes, for people like yourself and myself, so that we could see ourselves at these events and in these training cycles and going through the idea of being a mother or having a job that requires you to be in the office till 10, 12, 14 hours and still getting training. And like, those were the stories
Mm.
that I was attracted to. And we literally put pen to paper and started late September, early October, talking to people, getting stories out there. And we're starting our 5th year now, which is just bananas.
Yeah. And so when you, from the get-go, did you decide that it wasn't just going to be for Texas? Because I know the publication you talked to was initially like for Texas. Did you just have a bigger vision from the beginning?
Yeah, 100%. So I'll give you a backstory. So when I worked at the Dallas Morning News, I was a sales rep and we could only sell to Dallas companies, right? For the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was asked to increase my sales. Well, I wasn't asked, my quota got increased.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Been there.
yeah. They're like, "Hey, by the way, here's your increased quota." And my first question was, "What are the new solutions that we're going to be able to offer to clients?" And they said, "Nothing." And I said, "So let me get this straight. You want me to sell more with nothing new? What makes you think I wasn't trying to sell more to begin with already? Like, why? Like, I don't understand." And the whole rigmarole with corporate America. And then I thought, I have a really talented and smart people around me in the social media space. And so I talked to them about what we could do. And we launched a network of Facebook pages called Blank is Hiring. So fill in the city, right? And I took it to my supervisor and they were like, "Well, the DMN, Dallas Morning News, says you can't do this because of X, Y, and Z." And I said, "Well, okay." So I went back to the drawing board and we came up with a solution to that. And I was like, "But I don't want to do it for just Dallas and Fort Worth." And so we launched, I think, 50 cities almost simultaneously. Dallas,
Wow.
Oklahoma City, New Orleans, you name it, right? And it allowed me to now reach out to these companies that were all across the country. And it made selling much easier because I wasn't competing against just people within the space. I had multiple spokes for revenue, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so taking that same mindset and that same concept is basically what I did. I was like, I don't want to just talk to Texas athletes or Dallas athletes. There's so many people out here in this space. And I had already been participating in social media and had already met people that were in DC and Boulder and Seattle, all over the country. And I was like, yeah, I want to keep talking to those people. I don't want to shrink the
Mm-hmm.
world. I want to expand it.
Yes. Yeah. I relate to so much of that. Like the corporate America stuff, I was a software salesperson. So when people ask me what I used to do, I'm like, well, I'm a recovering software salesperson. Like that was a great learning experience in my life. I enjoyed a lot of parts of it, but it was, kind of like you describe. And I just wanted something different. And then I've thought about, like, for this podcast in particular, I was like, should I just stick to Indiana and like Indianapolis stories and like do them all in person and like just grow our community here? But then I would meet people like you and Ohm and like just you name all these other people. I'm like, I can't limit the stories that I share. There's just so many amazing stories to share.
Yeah, and I think when you're an extrovert, the idea that you would sort of create an introverted space because you're only going to operate within Indiana or within, in that scenario, Texas, makes no sense. And
Mm-hmm.
I knew that Texas wasn't my final landing spot in life. And so the idea that I would end up only talking to Texans didn't sit well with me. I was like, well, what if I move to, you know, back to New York? Now what? Do
Right.
I sell the company?
Right.
Do I, what happens then? And so,
Yeah.
a little bit of forward thinking, which I'm not really known for, but a little bit of forward thinking happened. And it was
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. Let's do more than that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't even really think about that piece of it. True. Because, yeah, if you move, then literally, yeah, then your whole network is almost worthless at that point.
Yep.
So you started endurance events in 2007. What got you into endurance? Were you athletic growing up as a kid, or what did that look like for you?
Yeah, the major sports. As a Puerto Rican, you're almost born into life with a baseball glove. Like it's part of the scenario of growing up, right? So I played baseball as a kid. I played football in high school and basketball and stuff. And it was '07. My ex-wife, who worked for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society at the time, and they have a run club, I guess you would call it, the team in training
Mm-hmm.
opportunity there, and she came home one day from work and said, we have to join team in training to run the Westchester half marathon. And I'm telling you, my response was, who's this we? You got a mouse in your pocket? Like, I'm not running. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
you know She's like, oh, it'd be good for my career and blah 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 blah. And I was like, okay, well, I'm a former athlete. I played ball, right? I could do this shit. I got it. I walked to the I walked to the middle school track, which is like half mile away. Had my Gatorade, had like my Jordans with cotton socks and cotton shirt and everything. And I
Mm-hmm.
zero, bubkiss about pacing or anything. And I remember that first 400 meters, like it was the hardest thing I remember ever doing. Like just sweat pouring, breathing so heavy. And I walked 400 meters, and then I ran another 400 meters, and I walked another 400 meters. And I picked up all my gear and went home thinking, I'm a badass. I just did a mile, right? Like, look at me. I just did a mile. This is
Yeah.
amazing. And then we started getting involved with the team in training because they met on a weekly basis and started running with the club there. And I started meeting veterans of the sport and the lessons that they were teaching me, right? Like how to run uphill with leaning at your ankles and pumping your arms and neutral head and soft hands and soft like all of these things. And I was like, this is damn cool. Like this is really cool. And I could feel myself and see myself getting better at the sport. And so just that addiction to improving kicked in. I was like, all right, I ran this first mile and I don't even know what time it was, 12 minutes or something. And then it became 11 and then 10 and then 9 and then 8. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm getting better. Let's keep doing this. And 18 years later, that first mile, it will still hold a special place in my heart.
Mm-hmm. So, and you're a triathlete. You mentioned Ironman as well. I mean, I'm sure plenty of people listening here are also triathletes, but primarily runners. Did you do a ton of running and then go into triathlons, or like what got you into the sport of triathlons?
So I got divorced, had been a runner, got divorced, moved to Texas. And in making acquaintances slash friends as an adult is not really easy, right? And I joined a slow pitch softball league. And going back to my heyday as a high school athlete,
I was like, I can only imagine you playing softball, slow pitch. That's like great.
I was like back out there, ready to roll. And two of my teammates, they said, "Hey, I know you run. Have you registered or for this triathlon, the Grapevine Pedal, Paddle, and Pound? I think is what it was called, and
Okay.
or paddle, pedal, and pound, paddle, swim, pedal,
Okay.
yeah."
Yep.
And I was like, "What's a triathlon?" And they're like, "Well, you swim,
Yeah.
bike, and run." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, that sounds cool. Let's do it." So I go home, I register, I do what you would call training, I guess. Like I will never forget this. I went to Gold's Gym, jumped in the 25-yard pool. I just swim like 25 yards, be totally gassed, get out of the water after swimming like 100 to 200 yards, thinking the whole entire swim was 300 yards. I was like, that's what you need, right? I'm good. About a week before the event, I say to my teammates, "Oh, are you ready? Did you register? I'm excited about it." And they said, "No, we didn't register. Like we totally did not do this. Like totally forgot about it." And so yes, I go to this race by myself, nobody there, and it's a pool swim. And so it's a 300-meter swim. So it's 6 lanes, 25 yards up, 25 yards down in the same lane. Swim under the lane line, up, down, six. And you seed yourself. And I have no idea.
Oh, you seed yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I'm
have
like, I don't,
no
yeah.
clue what I'm doing. I jump in the water and I'm just hauling ass, right? Like that first 400 meters, I am hauling ass. After about 75 yards, 100 yards, because again, my training was like 200 yards of swimming, totally spent. Thank goodness it was in a pool because I could stand up and walk. And I'm literally walking in this pool up and down the lane lines, and people are yelling, "You're gonna get DQ'd!" And the only thing going through my head was, "Good, then that means all this shit would be over and I can go home." Like, yeah, let's end it.
Yeah. Great.
I'm in for that. Get through the swim, get on the bike, and it was like a switch got flipped. The wind in your face and in your hair, and I don't know how fast I was going, but it felt like I was going 100 miles an hour on the bike, and it just felt so amazing. And then you get to the run, which is something I had been doing for a number of years, and I was like, "This is awesome." And I got bit by the triathlon bug, and I just started registering for sprint tries and Olympic tries, and I was like, "This is just damn cool."
Wow. And do you know how many triathlons you've completed?
I know how many Ironman. I've done 8 Ironman.
Okay.
I've finished 8 DNF'd 1 Ironman event. Probably half or 2/3 of that number, so maybe 6 half Ironman events. And I think I only spent 1 year in the sprint Olympic distance, so maybe another 4 of those, I would guess, somewhere in that vicinity.
Wow. So which one did you DNF
Ironman
and why?
Wisconsin. For a number of years, I was racing a 100 miler in February, and then I would race an Ironman in late September, early October. And my goal for 100 milers was to get into Western states. And you have to register early for it, and for put your name in the lotto, right? Early, and your name gets pulled, or the names get pulled in December. And so I had already registered for Rocky Raccoon in 2019, which is right around Valentine's Day, and had already registered for Ironman Wisconsin in late September 2019. And December of 2018, I get a text message that says, "We're in. I will see you at States." And I was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Like I had no idea the lottery was happening or any of that stuff. Totally forgot about it, honestly. And my name got pulled for Western States. And so February of 2019, 100 miler, now late June, early July, 100 miler, and late September, early October, Ironman. And I remember vividly getting on the massage table for Ironman Wisconsin. So you're talking probably August. And I had been going to this masseuse, friend of mine, and I remember telling her, "I can't wait for all this shit to be over." And she's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I'm just so tired of waking up at the crack of dawn. I'm so tired of eating gels. I'm so tired of measuring electrolyte powder, and I'm just tired of it all, that I can't wait for this event to end." And I had never said that, not once, ever. We get to Ironman Wisconsin and practice swim the day before. The water's like glass. Like I could have swam for ever. Day of the race, I could feel myself already just like getting nervous and really anxiety riddled. The wind starts picking up and I almost get under the start line banner and I stop. And I'm like, okay, gather yourself, get ready, because I could see the white caps on the lake up there. And I was like,
Oh no.
yeah. So we start swimming and I get about 6/10 of a mile into this swim, and I had been already backstroking and everything else. And I looked at my watch, and it was already 30 minutes into this swim, and it's 2.4 miles, so 25% in 30 minutes. I'm like, I'm not swimming for 2 hours, then getting out and getting on a bike for at least 6, and then getting out and running for at least 4. Like, I'm just not doing. I was solely spent. So I waved my arm, and the jet ski volunteer comes over, and the young lady, super nice, did everything a volunteer is supposed to do. Okay, just wait, gather yourself, take a breath, figure it out before you pull yourself. And I was like, lady, get me on this jet ski. I'm done. Like, I'm out.
You're like, no, you don't understand. I'm done.
Yeah. And so I sit in front of her and we're facing away from the driver. And she's like, do you mind if I put my arms around you? And I was like, lady, I don't care what you do. Just get me to the dock. Like, I really don't care. And she gets me to the dock. And Allie, this is where I think people need to recognize perspective and everything else. So I'm sitting there and they're pulling people out of the water, left, right, and center, right? I'm not the only one who made this decision. So perspective number 1. Perspective 2 is this young lady sat next to me and she's got tears running down her face. And I asked her, I said, was this your first? And she said, yeah, I've been training for a year and this was my first. And I really thought that I would be able to get through it all. And I talked with her for a handful of minutes and it dawned on me, dude, you've got 8 Ironman finishes. Like, it's okay if you DNF this event, right? It's not your first. You've been here before and it's okay. And really changed my perspective on a whole lot of the narrative that we see in our sports. And look, everybody's on their own journey, but for me, like, the whole concept of DFL before DNF is bullshit. Like, no, if this is not something that I'm enjoying, that I might hurt myself and end up sidelined for days, weeks, months, potentially years, I'm not doing it.
Right.
I'm just not doing it. I'll tell you another quick story. I DNF'd at Black Canyon a few years ago, and I was at the aid station. It was mile 26, which I think is Bumblebee Ranch. And again, volunteers were phenomenal. Are you sure? Asking questions. And one lady came over and she's like, are you sure? And I said, is Jamil going to be at the finish line with a big check for me? And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, is he going to pay me to finish this event? Because if not, I'm done. Like,
I'm good.
what? I've already done this race. Like, I don't need to do it again. It's okay. But I just think, I gained perspective in that moment. Like, you train, you work, you do all the things, but some days are just not your days. And that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like Joe at the Mohican,
Yes.
he had a DNF. And for people who don't know what DFL means, dead fucking last.
Yep.
So I have not heard that term actually, which is probably crazy actually now that I'm thinking about it. But he's injured. His knee is like swelling up like a softball. And he's like, so I had to call. It's like, yeah,
Right.
Some days it's just not your day. Your body's going to tell you and you got to listen. There's only so much pain you can sit in as a human being.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, and at the end of the day, it is like just running. And, it's hard because people like you and I, Jason, who are like so freaking competitive, it's really hard to come to terms with that sometimes. But I've practiced it. And I feel like the practicing it has helped me be better at it. Just being like, it's not that deep. Like, and the whole point is to have fun. And so if it's not fun, like you were saying, you're dreading it, didn't want to do it. It's like, wait, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Why am I even here?
And I think people push themselves to oftentimes not for themselves. They're worried what Susie in Sarasota or Larry in Lincoln, Nebraska thinks. And I'm like, sorry, man, I just don't give a shit what you think. If you don't want to hit like or kudos on this, okay. Like, it'll happen.
Right. Like we were saying, somebody's going to think something about it. Even if you finish that race, somebody's going to judge you for it. Like, oh, you're crazy. That's bad for your knees. Like, what are you doing to your body? I mean, no matter what you do.
Nailed it.
Which is just so crazy to me. It's like, people. Who are these people? I don't know, but they are not friends of mine. I want to talk about something else kind of alongside this journey of endurance sports that you've shared before, which I really appreciate that you've talked about this, and that's the topic of food and also the topic of sobriety. Because I feel like now finally it's okay and not as taboo to talk about it. Thank goodness. And I feel like, especially as a guy, like, so could you just kind of take us through that part of this journey?
Yeah, so I've been sober for probably about 12 years now.
Wow.
I was a drunk. No mincing of words. Passing out in the front yard, just a total mess. And I woke up and was, for the most part, given an ultimatum, right? Get sober or get out. And I thought about, like, what am I actually doing to myself? Like, why am I getting drunk and all of these things? And I was not a happy drunk. Like, it is the Jekyll and Hyde for me. If I'm sober, I am laughing all day long, constantly cracking jokes, making fun of my own self. But when I become inebriated, it becomes an asshole. Absolutely, no doubt about it. And so I did it cold turkey, just stopped drinking one day, and I was like, I'm not doing this, right? And I don't know. Look, everybody's got their own reasons for doing it, but one of the side benefits of it was, holy crap, I feel much better when I run. Like,
Yeah, imagine that.
right? Like, this 6-hour bike ride no longer feels like total garbage. Like, I can ride my bike and feel good about it and enjoy it, instead of like being hungover and having to stop at every fifth gas station to get a bottle of Gatorade to get electrolytes into me. And it was such a game changer. And it also accompanied getting rid of meat from my diet and becoming a vegetarian simultaneously. Like, I did one, got rid of alcohol, and then like a week later got rid of meat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And again, cold turkey, like, just not gonna do it and see what happens. And it is kind of cool. Like, I wouldn't tell people back then, like, I'm getting sober or anything like that. It was sort of a taboo thing, and why aren't you drinking, and all of that, those questions. And it made you feel bad. And it's like, look, I just don't want to drink anymore. Like, I'm an asshole when I drink. You want me to be an asshole again? Sure. Right?
Yeah. Right.
Why would you want that person to come hang around you? And I do have a big personality. And so with friends and family, it just became one of those things where I would say to them, do you like me when I'm fucking drunk? Like, do you want me to be an asshole? Is that cool for you? Because we could go right back there. And the questions stopped coming, right? And the pressure to drink stopped showing up, because I was just open about it more and more and more. And so now when I see it on social media, people are on their sobriety journeys, it makes me happy to see that people feel comfortable enough to talk about it. Now, what I hope that they do is don't just tell strangers. I hope they tell the people that are close to them in their real life, like, look, I don't drink for this reason, that reason, or that reason. Stop asking me to drink.
Right. Well, and I think for people who still drink, I do occasionally. I've changed my relationship with alcohol, because my body, just as I've gotten older, I just don't feel good.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, imagine that. I feel so much better.
Yeah.
Weird. I sleep better. There's just a lot of benefits. But anybody around you who's still like trying to question or pressure you, I think it just is a really good, I don't know, temperature check on the people you have in your inner circle and who you are spending your time around. Because my good friends are just like, oh, like, is this a new thing? Are you going to just not drink? And they don't care. They're asking questions because they're interested and supportive, not because they're judging me or trying to get me to drink.
Right.
So congratulations. 12 years is
Thank you.
A long time.
I think the other thing for the people who are pressuring, not the people who are also sober curious.
This episode is brought to you by Previnex, clinically effective supplements that promote longevity, performance, and everyday health. Today, I want to talk to you just really briefly about Previnex's Gut and Green Superfood. So I was taking a green for a while previously, and I replaced that green with Previnex, and here's why. Previnex has no junk included. So the benefits of taking a green are to help with digestion, natural energy. Previnex even has anti-aging benefits. And so theirs is higher quality and, get this, less expensive than others you may be taking or have tried in the past. And the flavor is really like a sour apple, and it's pretty darn good for a green. I take it every single morning, first thing in the morning, before my cup of coffee. And I used to have more than one cup of coffee. Now I find that I don't really need it as much. Gut and Greens has really given me the natural energy that I need desperately these days. So if you want to try Previnex, you can use code Allie, ALLY 15 at Previnex.com. That's PREVINEX.com. Allie 15 for 15% off your first order. Thank you so much to Previnex for supporting this podcast.
For the people who are pressuring, not the people who are also sober curious, is to ask yourself, why do you need that drink, right? Like, why are you asking me to drink when you should be asking yourself why you need that drink? And
Right.
do some self-inventory. And you know what's crazy in the 12 years, if you've changed your relationship with alcohol, you might see this too. Like, I watch a ton of TV, and I notice, like, at the end of almost every TV show that's like a drama, they finish with a shot of whiskey or a glass of whiskey, and I'm like, well, no wonder people are like, oh, I'm so spent from today at work. I just need a glass of whiskey or a glass of wine, because in nearly every TV show, that's what they're doing.
True.
And so life is imitating art in that scenario. And so, like, I wonder, like, as you go through your relationship and your change of your relationship, if you watch TV or movies, if you'll notice that and be like, yeah, you're right. It's everywhere. It's so prevalent.
I have noticed. I have, even just myself, because I'm the same. I watch a lot of TV, and it is wild. And it's not just like a beer. A lot of times it is hard alcohol, like a nightcap kind of concept. And it's like on any day of the week. Or even at the office. Like,
Yes.
that blows my mind in like some of like the Mad Men type of scenario,
Yep.
which, I mean, you can laugh and relate to, having been in advertising yourself.
Lived
But
it.
it's like, yeah, you're like, that was me.
Yes.
Like, just like, oh, hey, client, would you like some of my best scotch? Here you go. Yeah, it's silly looking at it now with a different perspective. Like you
Right.
said, perspective is everything. And I also, having young kids, I know they notice and they see, and they pick up on a lot more than what I think people, really realize. And so I want to set a good example and be the best version of myself. And this is, again, I don't know if I said this already, not to judge anybody else who still drinks. It's not, that's you.
That's
like,
right.
that's totally fine. I don't judge people who do, because everybody can live their own life. And that's totally fine.
Yep. Then you wanted to talk about
Yeah. Food.
food.
Yeah, because I've been there as well. But again, I think as a female, it's a lot different to talk about, because people are like, oh, of course. Like, as a woman, you want to be skinny, and, you think about eating disorders. And at least for me, it's like you always think about women struggling with food. But I've talked to many athletes who have struggled with this topic. So I think it would be helpful to hear your story.
Yeah. So when I first got on to, I think it was Instagram. If you scroll, you'd have to scroll forever at this point. But if you scrolled all the way back, you would see every post of mine was plates of food. And I love cooking. My personal Instagram handle is Cook Train Eat Race, because that was what I was doing. And I love food. I love cooking food. I love everything about it. But as I got further and further into triathlon, the whole lighter is faster mentality started to take over. And triathlon has a lot of math in it when it comes to measuring power and watts per kilogram and all of these things. And so, for those of you who don't know, watts per kilogram is basically how much power you're putting out in relationship to your body weight in kilograms. That's really what it is. And so it evens the playing field, because guys that are racing at the Tour de France are pushing 700, 800 watts. To give you perspective, that's like 8 100-watt light bulbs they're able to light with their legs. And on my best day, I'm pushing 200 watts, right? And so, in order to make it easier to compare, you use a formula, watts per kilogram. And so you start going into this. I shouldn't say you. People start going in down this path of measuring, and it's like, well, in order to increase that ratio, if I lower the denominator, right, lose weight, then the number is going to get higher. That's just math. And so I started restricting what I was eating and started restricting what I was eating. But what I was showing people was this glorious plate of food that I was eating one time a day. Everything else was like chewing air, basically. And then what I realized is, at the end of the night, I was in the pantry just inhaling food because I was starving. Like I just did a 6 hour bike ride or a 2 hour run or an hour and a half swim or all three on the same day for that matter, or whatever it was I was training for. I would run 4 or 5 hours in the trails. You need to replenish yourself. But I was so concerned that lighter was faster that I avoided it. And then I had a conversation with my wife Lori, and she's blunt, and she said, "I think you have disordered eating problem." And it really opened my eyes because at first I fought, no way, no chance, right? Like
Right.
that's not me. I'm perfectly
Mm-hmm.
healthy. I'm perfectly fine. Look, I can do 8 Ironman. There's like
Yeah.
that's the measurement for success against disordered eating. Uh, and we had conversations, more and more conversations, and I realized she's right. Like I am showing people this balanced plate with, plant-based protein and a starch and a vegetable, and here's my smoothie and all of these things. And I'm like, yeah, but my relationship with food is awful. It's
Mm.
absolutely awful. Like I will tell people don't eat the powdered donut, and yet I'm eating 12 of them at the same time. Like that doesn't make any sense. My relationship is
Mm-hmm.
really, really bad. And once I recognized that, then things started to change little by little. And I remember writing an article for our website about my disordered eating and the recognition of it all. And Allie, it probably took 8 months. I wrote it, I put it in drafts. I wrote it, I put it in drafts. I wrote it, I put it in drafts repeatedly. And then one day I was like, you just have to do this, dude, right? You quit alcohol cold turkey, you quit eating meat cold turkey, like just do this. And I remember I scheduled the post for like a week from the time that the date. And I remember telling myself, do not visit the website, do not visit your social media accounts, don't go anywhere the day that it gets published. And the next day we shared that story and I got messages from people all in the positive. Thank you so much for sharing this. This means a lot. And that became empowering for me to talk
Yeah.
more and more about this and and here's the crazy thing too, right? As a podcast host, you have to find a way to relate to your guests. You
Mm-hmm.
have to connect with them on some level. And one of the things I found was I was able to connect with a lot more people because I was open and honest and vulnerable with
Mm.
this scenario of having disordered eating when it came to food. And I wouldn't say I'm out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination, although it's been 3 or 4 years since I started talking about it. I still weigh myself. I still look at food. I still worry about whether or not that Pop Tart is going to do something to me. Is it going to add a half an ounce of weight, the next day? I
Mm-hmm.
still struggle with that in some instances. And then I have to get my reality check and my perspective and be like, honestly, dude, really? Like, if you're hungry, you have to eat, right? You just
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I think the other thing that I've noticed is like in our world, there's so much gatekeeping around food with
Yeah.
our sports, and that has emboldened me to just be like, no, man, here's an 8 time Ironman, 8 time 100 miler, Coca-Cola finisher, and I'm eating Pop Tarts, and I'm eating M&Ms, and I'm eating candy. Like you can do all these things and do that too. Like you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
be strict and make sure that the powdered donut you're eating is protein powder donut, right? Like it's
Gross.
yeah, it would be
Does
gross.
that
No,
exist?
I hope not.
It probably
It
does,
probably
though.
does.
Yeah.
But here's another thing. So I read this the other day. There's a protein bar, air quotes for those of you who are listening, that the ingredients literally in most some of the ingredients literally have zero nutritional value. And oftentimes in our world we are not experts and we'll say, oh, that M&M doesn't have nutritional value, and it's like, sure it does, it's got peanuts in it, it'll help you out. But this has literally zero nutritional value based on what RDs have said. And so it's just a filler in the product that's going to pass right through you because your body cannot use it at all. But they're going to sell it for $4.99, and people are going to buy it because it's got pretty packaging, and they're going to have some athlete, marketing it, and people are going to spend money on
Mm-hmm.
it. And it made me
Yeah.
realize like these are the things that we have to now talk about and let people know like, look, man, you don't have to buy this protein bar that literally has nothing in it, and you can eat the powdered donut, and it's actually going to be better for you.
Wild, isn't
It's
it?
wild.
It's also really overwhelming, especially being on social media so
Yeah.
much, because you see all this beautiful branding.
Yes.
And then if you really like get down in the nitty gritty of the ingredients and what their purpose is, or, whatever. It can be a little scary even, because you're just like, oh, I thought I was doing something that was really good for my body, when in reality, and my dad always likes to say, everything in moderation, even moderation. Yeah. And I just love thinking about that, because it's true. Like, you can always go way overboard and restricting, right? And it's like, but that's not good for you either. And so it's just trying to find that balance, which is so hard. I feel the same way. Jason and I in college started my disordered eating. I was never diagnosed, but I know now, looking back, like, I was 100% disordered eating. Like, I would save my calories for alcohol. Mm-hmm. I would like not eat so that I could drink more and still like not have as many calories. Like, I had a journal where I would write down the number of calories I had in a mint that I got at the doctor's office. Like, it was very, like, you're like, oh, wow. Yeah. Looking back, it's really obvious. Yeah. But then I just thought, well, I'm taking very good care of myself. And it just, so even to this day, I still have like remnants of that pop up every now and again if I feel guilty for like eating a couple pieces of pizza. And it's like, listen, that's part of the reason I run and I'm so active, is so I just don't have to get so hung up on all of that, and just enjoy food and use it to fuel, and not like just over analyze everything I put in my body.
Yeah. And I think we have to be careful with that too, right? Which is, I need it for fuel. And that's cool. Like, yes, you definitely do. But you know what? If you want to have an ice cream cone on a Sunday while you're walking down the street, have the damn ice cream cone on a Sunday while you're walking down the street. It's okay.
Right.
Like, it's okay.
Yeah. And again, for my kid, especially young girls, I don't ever want them. I mean, they know I eat like salad, because I genuinely do love a good salad, but it's, but I also love a great cheeseburger. Yeah. And so I will eat both. And
I'm laughing because we were in Sedona a week or so ago, and when you travel, you're just eating out all the time. And after a while, you just get tired of it. We got home to LA and I was like, I just want a salad. Like, I just want a salad, like that fresh, crisp salad. Just give it to me. I'm so jonesing for one of those right now, because I'm tired of eating all this other nonsense that you're eating out all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, it's funny. What are you going to get, Mom? You going to get a salad? I'm like, yes, I am.
Yes, with some chickpeas. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I want to make sure we come back to Run, Try, Bike towards the end, because I want to make sure that we like tell everybody what it is, how to get involved, how to make sure that they're staying up to date on what you guys are up to, how, if they want to share their story with you, how to do that. But there were a couple other things I wanted to talk to you about. And this kind of ties into Run, Try, Bike, and that's community.
Yeah.
You shared an idea on a podcast you did, I think it was this year, of a running store that has a coffee shop and a podcast studio.
Yes.
And just the idea of that kind of community building. I just want to talk to you about that, because I love the idea so incredibly much about fostering the community with those kinds of things. So could you talk about your perspective on building community and what that means to you?
I love talking to people, period, end of story. Like, I just love talking to people. I think people, they're unique because there's only one of them. And so their experience is going to be unlike anybody else's. And I'll give you a quick story. We lived in Phoenix, and the World Baseball Classic was being played. And I've already told you I'm Puerto Rican, and Puerto Rico was playing at the World Baseball Classic at Chase Field, which was literally 1 block away from our apartment. And we went for a walk, and there was this young lady a handful of steps ahead of me with a hat that had the Puerto Rican flag on it. And I just yelled out to her, "Yo, Puerto Rico!" And she turned around and she yelled it back. And like, there was just like this automatic connection. And she waited, and we caught up, and I started talking to her. And here's a young Puerto Rican woman who's going to graduate school at Arizona State University, who is studying oceanography. Like, what? Right? Like, I don't even know what that means, but tell me more. And she may not remember this story. She may not remember me at all, but I remember it. And I think that is the whole point of community, right? Talking to people and remembering what they said and their impact on you and connecting them, but then also having the chance to connect them to somebody else. So Allie says to me, I former software sales, I live in Indiana. And then one day I'm talking to somebody else and they're like, oh yeah, I run this SaaS business and I live in Indiana. I'm like, I know somebody you need to talk to. Right? Like, I don't know anything about either of those two things, but I know somebody who does. And I think that's the cool part about it all, right? The concept of build a bigger table sits at the top of my heart. Like, to build a bigger table, because I think about it this way. Let's say you go to a dinner party and you're all sitting around a table, and every single person is telling you, well, my pace is 6 minutes and 9 seconds when I'm running on a flat section, but 7:10 when I'm running uphill and 5:04 when I'm running downhill. And then the next person's like, well, my pace is a 6, and you're like, I've had enough. Like, enough of the running. What else do you do? What else is
Yeah.
going on in your life? Tell me more about that stuff. Like, we're all runners, got it. And I
Yeah.
think, once we start connecting with each other, our worlds open up. And I just think that being able to listen to people, enjoy their conversations, help them out when they need help, that to me is everything. And I think a lot of it, Allie, is born out of my family. When I was a kid, my parents' house, they were one of the first families in our family to buy a house. And every Friday night, my aunt and uncle would come over, they'd go out to dinner and they'd come over and they would be chit-chatting all night long. And then Saturday, inevitably, other family members would come over. There would be salsa music and merengue music playing, food all over the place. It would be loud. People would be telling stories. People would be laughing. People would be crying if it was a sad story. And I just saw all these people coming together, right, in this close vicinity to enjoy each other's company. And I've always wanted to emulate that in my own life. I've always wanted that to be the thing that always happened. And so I don't have Sunday dinners at my apartment, but I can have Sunday dinner through Run, Try, Bike and talking to people and connecting with people and having that opportunity to, for lack of a better phrase, rub elbows with them.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess let's segue that into talking about something that's not running really quick, and that is being a professor at a university or adjunct or whatever. I mean, I know nothing about academia and that world,
Lecturer.
but yeah, a lecturer. So where does that come in? And how are you doing that?
So
And are you still doing that?
I am still doing that. My wife is 2 times smarter than I am, and that's probably underestimating it. She was teaching online at Southern New Hampshire University, and because I don't know anything about it, I'm like, what do you do? Like, how do you do that? How did you get into this? And so she's like, well, I did A, B, and C, and I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. And so I applied, and SNHU hired me, and I've been teaching there for 4 years now, 3 years, and I've loved it so much so that when we lived in Phoenix, I applied to become an adjunct lecturer at GCU, Grand Canyon University, and was accepted. And what was really cool was I got to teach in person to 18 to 20-year-olds. It was so much fun. There's always the kid that's sleeping in the corner. You know what, dude? I was
Yeah.
there. I had a rough night when I was 18 to take a nap. That's
Yeah.
fine. But I got to engage in just phenomenal conversations with 18 to 22-year-olds, 20-year-olds. And I will say this, like, older generations are always dumping on these kids. Instead of dumping on them, lift them up, talk to them, engage with them. Like, they are so smart. They know so much stuff. And so I got to teach intro to marketing there. And when we moved to LA, I applied to Cal Lutheran University, and I'm teaching, or last term I taught business management, and this term I'm teaching business law. And it's just, and they're older adults. So they're already out in the professional workforce. And a lot of them have come up against the ceiling where if I don't get a degree, I can't progress in my company, type of thing. And so they're
Right.
there getting their degrees. And again, they're 24 to 40-year-olds and they have life experiences. And I teach my classes in a contribution manner, meaning you have to contribute to this class because I don't want to stand in front of the room staring at a slide reading to you. You know how to
Yeah.
read. That's not the point of it all. And so we get to have phenomenal conversations. We just talked about Flow Rida versus Celsius Holdings in a breach of contract court case.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I try to bring in what's happening in today's world into these conversations. Right now, there's a lot of antitrust with Google and or Alphabet, the parent company, happening these days.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many court cases that are happening right now that this idea of going back to 1948 to get a court case doesn't make any sense. And so we get to talk about what's happening in today's world and today's business because these are tomorrow's business leaders, right? Like these are the people who are going to be making decisions at companies or starting their own companies. And let's have fun with it and let's see what's happening in today's world. And they push back, and I appreciate them pushing back. We talked about Jack Welch. I don't know if you remember this from your corporate America days.
Mm,
Jack Welch was the CEO of GE for decades, and he always had this rule of thumb, which I think is uber antiquated, which was every year you get rid of 20% of your lowest performing workers
mm,
and you
mm.
recycle, right? You bring in new talent. Now, the theory is I bring in new people with new ideas. But the reality is for 365 days, you're scaring the crap out of your employees, right? Because they're like, oh, I'm going to be the one that gets chopped, which then forces them to look elsewhere. And that costs money. Like you have to
Mm-hmm.
onboard people, you have to teach them, and all that costs a lot of money. So instead of spending extra, why not invest in the people that you have? And so we were able to have this conversation where they were pushing back on me and I was pushing back on them, and it was fun. Like it was just a lot of fun
Mm-hmm.
to have these conversations. So I love it. I hope I can do it for the foreseeable future. If we move again in a year, I'll apply to whatever school's nearby when we when we get to the new destination.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. I have to comment on the business law that you're teaching now because, okay, if we go back to what you said at the beginning, you called me old because I also had a bookstore to go to in college. And the business law book was by far the biggest book of all the books ever in my college career. And I remember that damn thing. I don't know how many pages it was, but I just remember our professor saying, you don't need to bring that to class. Like, save your back.
It's strength
Like,
training.
I will reference it. It's strength training. Like, it was insane. It was probably, who knows how much money, because textbooks were so expensive, but it was probably my most expensive book as well. Anyway, I digress. But I was just thinking, how funny is that you picked marketing because of the size of the book,
Yep.
and now you're teaching business law, which I feel like was the biggest book I ever owned in college.
And,
So
and my
that's
students
funny.
benefit from my theory of you don't need the biggest book because the book that I assigned for the class, one, you can download it online, but I do have a student who actually bought it and it's like a half-inch thick. Like you don't need all of that stuff. Like
Yeah.
I want you to be active in class because if you're in a business meeting, you're not going to be like, oh, hold on, let me run to my textbook and get to page 742 to quote this. You're going to be
Yeah.
engaged in interacting in a business meeting. So be engaged in interacting in this class.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so great. Oh, I love that you do that. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Really
It
cool.
really is fun. Like I would encourage people if you have a passion for a topic, find the local community college, find the local university. The vast majority of them are looking for adjuncts and just apply and go try it out. Like this course that I'm teaching is 8 weeks long, 2 months, and you're out, right? That's it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
go have fun with it. You'll be nervous. Every first class I'm nervous. Like again, just like podcasting, just like running a company. Will people like me? Will they not like me? And then you start rolling, and you're like, yeah, this is cool. I'm having fun with it.
Yeah. Or you've got at least two people that are like nodding their heads or
Yes.
who come talk to you after class and you're like, okay, it was worth it.
Yep.
Because I have not been a professor, but I've done like guest lecturing
Yep.
at my alma mater a couple times, and it was terrifying, like absolutely terrifying, but also really rewarding to be able to, give back to the community that I tried to learn at, I should say.
Here's the thing about community too. So because we live in this endurance sports space, I've had college professors who are triathletes and runners be like, "Hey, do you mind being a guest speaker at my class, for this particular thing?"
Right.
So I've been able to be a guest speaker at USC a number of times, which is I mean, it's just so much fun, right? And you get the chance to also learn, and I think that's the key to it all.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because we don't know everything. How can you know everything? My
Impossible.
God. So let's talk about Run Try Bike again. And so for people who aren't familiar with Run Try Bike, can you break it down in terms of what it is, how people can share their story or get involved, and then also talk about the podcast network, the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network?
Yeah, so our vision and mission, I think, explains basically everything that we are at Run Try Bike. So our vision and mission is to be the premier voice of the everyday athlete, proving that there is a spot at the starting line for everybody and every body. When I started the business, like I mentioned, like everybody you saw was a 6'2" white guy who ran a 4-minute mile and finished an Ironman in 6 hours. And it's like, we're not all that. And so the idea was to tell stories of more women, more BIPOC athletes, more queer athletes, more physically challenged athletes. I wanted to provide a space for them to tell their stories, whatever their story was, whatever obstacles they were overcoming. And I think we're close to 400 stories on our website and 300 plus with the podcast network. And
Wow.
it's been amazing, right? Because I think when you're open and vulnerable and you're talking about sober and you're talking about food issues, disordered eating issues, you talk about DNFs, you talk about DNSs, people feel comfortable and they're like, okay, I will talk to you as well. And so we've had people talk about their own alcohol and drug abuse. We've had
Mm-hmm.
people who have shared that they are queer on our platform before telling family and friends, which is
Wow.
batshit crazy. We had one athlete tell their story about being sexually abused. And so I'll tidy that up a little bit. So I interviewed Jennifer Comfort for a story on our website. And one of the things that we do is we share the story with the person before we publish it. I don't want them to be caught off guard. I don't want them to be upset. I don't want them to be angry. And if they tell me delete it, I hit delete and I'll actually screen record me deleting it so they know it's gone and share it with them. And she emailed me back and she said, I don't know how this fits into the story, but the reason why he inspired me to run so much was because he was the only person I told that I was sexually abused. And so how do I put this in here? Yeah. And I was like, okay, sure. And we figured out how to get it into the story. And when we published it, she then told me that her friends and family did not know that that was a part of the story. And so that was a way for her to allow somebody else to tell it so she didn't have to feel the stress and the anxiety of telling it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's been amazing to see this happen. We've talked to a lot of BIPOC athletes, and they keep coming back to, and I say they, I should say we, because I'm Puerto Rican,
Mm-hmm.
is representation matters and taking up space matters. And so sharing their stories about, being at a start line, because I've experienced it too. And you look around, and I remember looking around at the number of start lines that I've been at and be like, I don't see people that look like my parents or my aunts and uncles or my cousins. Like, it's kind of weird to the point where I've had family members say to me, we don't do those things. And I was like, what do you mean we don't do those things? I'm actually doing them. Like, I'm literally doing them. And so we want to tell those stories. We want people to feel comfortable in telling their stories, right? Not everybody wants to run a marathon. Not everybody wants to run a 100-miler. And that's okay. And I want you to know that that's okay. If 5Ks is your jam, let's talk about it. Let's jam out to 5Ks. I interviewed Chris Koch yesterday. No legs, no arms, runs marathons. He does it on a longboard. It's phenomenal, right?
My God. Yeah.
And so it's that openness and willingness to share their story, because I'm guessing that the vast majority of people don't feel like their story is worthy. And
Yes.
and I'm here to tell you it is, because there's no other story like it. And so we interview people, we write the story, we share it with them, they approve it, we post it, and then we put it on social media. And I do my best to go back to them over time. I don't want them to feel
Yeah.
like, cool, I told my story and then I don't get to see it again unless I bring it up. Again, if I'm having a dinner party, I want to invite you to the dinner party, right? I don't want you to
Mm-hmm.
come one time. I want you to keep coming and keep hanging out.
Right.
And because we don't know who we're going to inspire either, and who might be inspired and connect with somebody else's story. And so that's the whole premise for what we do when it comes to the website, when it comes to our digital magazine as well. And then you referred to the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. I will not lie. This is not my idea, shall we say. I stole it from Lebitard and Friends, which is formerly an ESPN podcast. And they had a bunch of different personalities under this umbrella. And then those
Mm-hmm.
personalities started to get their own shows, but it was all under one umbrella. And when Dan Lebitard left to go start Meadowlark Media, he brought all these personalities with him. And I was like, that's a damn cool idea. Like, there's so many people that can be podcast hosts, but don't want to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to get guests, or just a lot of different things. But if I can be the center hub for them and manage it all and do it all for them, then they'll be happy to talk and interview people. And then I talk to
Mm-hmm.
advertisers because, look, I don't want to eat ramen for the rest of my life. And so,
Yeah. I said I started a business, not
right.
a charity.
And so I started talking to
Yeah.
businesses, and I was like, would it be easier for you if we had shows under our umbrella so that you wouldn't have to go look for shows? Because you and I both know every day another 100 podcasts pop up, and then and then
Right.
the very next day, those same 100 go away because it's work. And
It's hard.
yeah, right, exactly. And the businesses were like, yes, that would make it much easier. We trust you. You've been around for 3, 4 years. We get it. We know you. We would be happy to do that. And so we launched EAPN, and we brought in Running Tales with Craig Lewis, which is a UK based podcast. And I had been on Craig's show, and he was getting ready to close it down. And I was like, would you keep it open if you came under EAPN and we did everything for you? And he was like, yes. And so he came in. We talked to Joe. Joe's got a great personality. He's a fun guy to be around, and we started Beyond the Finish Line with him. I had already been doing Food Fight Friday videos on Instagram on every Friday, and I met Adam Lee at Community Trail Running and hit it off. And I say this all the time. Like, he would have been the kid that I spent detention with when we were in high school. Like, we would have just always been in detention together. And we hit it off, and so we launched Food Fight Friday at the aid station, where we play the fuck, marry, kill game, just eat, toss, or carry instead.
I like that.
And then Joe and Ohm rolled in with What's in Your Earbuds, because what's more natural to running than music? Not much. And so we have the What's in Your Earbuds show now. Evan Birch, who is an ultra runner, reached out to me, and he's like, hey, I'm trying to get sponsors, blah, blah, blah. And we started talking about men's mental health. And next thing you know, Enduring Minds is a men's mental health it's a mental health podcast that's hosted by two men, really. And so we launched that. And then Angela Hollowell reached out to me via LinkedIn, and we chatted a couple of times. And she's like, what would it look like if Melanin MVP got folded in under the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network? And we went back and forth on, what do you need from us and what do I need from you? And Melanin MVP is about Black and brown women in sports, and it's all sports. The stories that we share on our platform from Melanin MVP are about endurance athletes, but she's got stories about women soccer players and basketball players and everything else on that platform. And so those are the 8 shows. And then Caffeinated Coaching is the one that my wife runs, and every now and again she'll be like, I should talk to this coach for this podcast, and so we'll do that as well. But it's so damn cool because it's so many different people telling so many different stories, tons of laughs, tons of sometimes tears. On Enduring Minds, Enduring Minds it's a funny show because it is all men. We only interview men. And you would think, right, tough guys, and we're gonna. And next thing you know, there's tears flowing in the middle of the episode, and it's damn cool, right? Like, you're giving permission to men to be emotional, and it's a cool.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's really, that's so cool.
Yeah, and so most of the shows are bi-weekly, so they're 2 a month, and then our Fireside Chat, which is the one that launched all of this, is a weekly show that we do every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And we broadcast it live on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And so if you're on those platforms at that time, come in, comment, ask questions. Like, I encourage you to come in and ask questions and just get involved with it.
I said this to Joe, but I have to credit you and Ohm, really, Jason, for my inspiration to join Lindsay Hine and her efforts, because you planted that seed for me that I could be part of a podcast network. That had never crossed my mind. And I was like, well, wait, I have a friend that has a podcast network. And I emailed her and I said, if this ever is interesting, like, maybe we could talk about it. Kind of like, just, maybe. And she's like, sure, yeah, let's do that. And I was like, wait, what? Don't you want to, like, know about what I do, or like that I do work hard and I do have my show every week? And she's like, no, let's do it. And so it's just been so great. I mean, that's really what's gotten me, some sponsor opportunities, and the ability to be in her orbit is amazing for me. So I credit you and Ohm for that.
We talked earlier about, not getting comments, but do you feel better, like warm and fuzzies, because you have that support there, so that if somebody doesn't comment on a podcast episode, you're like, that's okay, I've got Lindsay and the network here, and that is comforting too.
Yeah. Well, I feel like in a way too, it legitimizes it. Like, it's like, I feel more legitimate, part of something, more like it's a business, because I talk to Lindsay every other week, and we're coworkers, and it does make me feel a lot more supported, for sure. Yeah. I barely ever get comments. I should say, well, I do on Instagram, but like on the podcast itself, it's like, okay, is anybody listening? I don't know.
People, go to Spotify and drop the comments, man. Come on.
Right. I mean, it's just, and not the mean ones, because those are, Those are not nice.
Yeah, you
make
could
me
drop
feel
those in
bad.
there too. It'll tweak the algorithm a little bit.
Yeah, or you can just DM me. Like I also want people to know I'm open to feedback.
Yes,
Like I don't want
100%.
it to suck. Or like if something didn't work and like there's music in a random spot, like could you let me know? Because that's happened before where I listened back to my episode and I'm like, nobody told me that there was this random music in the middle of the episode. Thanks, people.
One of the reasons why we do it
Oh, well.
live is so that we can get comments from people so that we can add that to the show while we're in the midst of talking. It typically happens in what's in your earbuds, and with Food Fight Friday, we'll get those comments in there because people are laughing and having fun. But even in Enduring Minds, we'll get comments while we're broadcasting the show live, which is kind of cool.
That's so cool. How do you find your everyday athletes? Like, is it typically people reaching out to you
subscribe to our
or
newsletter?
What?
So you're telling me you didn't subscribe
I
to
do. I tell you, I don't read all the emails I get, Jason. I am subscribed, I think.
It's so
I better
funny
be.
because, Santino Williams at 75 Santino on Instagram and Threads, he's helping me with our social media now. And he's like, you need to do a behind the scenes on how you get the athletes that you talk to and the questions that you ask and all of these things. And so our newsletter just went out on June 1st that has like a 4-minute video exactly to this question. And like I said, I love talking to people. So I don't care about dropping into somebody's DMs. Like I just did it yesterday. This non-binary athlete started following us. And I was, when people follow me, I go and look at their profile. Who are they? Why are they following us? Why would they be interested in what we're doing and all these things? And I messaged them and I said, look, I did a cursory search through your profile. You look like you do damn cool shit. I'd love to talk to you. Right. Yeah. And then when we get, when they get into the interview, I tell them, look, I've done like 30 seconds worth of research on you. Allie, you did way more research on me than I would even do on myself, to be honest. And I'm telling you, like, we're going to get into this conversation and you're going to say something about how you once played dominoes with LL Cool J at a park in Brooklyn. And I'm going to jump all over that and have that conversation. And it's going to get away from an endurance sports. But that's the thing that intrigues me. And so that's how my winding path of questions come about. And then when it's all said and done, I say, who amongst your friends can I talk to next?
Right. Yeah. That's so cool. I know for me, it's like such a random mix, which is what I love. Yeah. Like, I don't want to talk to the same white dude every week. No. To your point, it's like people are so inherently interesting in like their hobbies outside of just running. And
let me ask you this question, because I got asked this question. I was a guest on another podcast and the way it was phrased, I don't think it was intended this way, but I was asked, has there been blowback on you because you're only talking to everyday athletes? And my response was, what blowback? What do you mean? Like, who's going to complain that I'm talking to Jane Smith? And the thought process was advertisers. Are you not getting advertisers and sponsors because you're not talking to Courtney DeWalter or Des Linden or whomever?
Interesting.
And I thought to myself, well, I've been in business for, at that time, 4 years. So clearly it's not that big of a problem. Could it be bigger? Would Nike and Reebok be interested? Maybe, sure. But back on you, like, have you had any experiences with talking to sponsors where they would say to you, if you only had, again, Courtney is just the one that keeps coming to mind. If you had
Cole Hawker. Yeah, my dad wants me to interview Cole Hawker because he's from Indiana. I want to interview his dad. I've been working on that. But I was like, no, Dad, I don't want to interview Cole Hawker. Now, I did get to meet him and he's lovely and amazing. But I was like, no, I don't. He is not an everyday runner.
Right.
He's an Olympian. I don't want to interview him on my Everyday Runner podcast.
Right.
And he's like, well, isn't that what you're trying to do? Like get and I'm like, no, it's actually not. So I think it's funny that you got that question. I'm sure it's weird because in Sandy Boy Productions with Lindsay, her podcast, she interviews pros. Right. Like that's what she does. That's her shtick. And so I compliment that really well. But it's like my thought process is, gosh, the everyday athletes are the ones that are buying all your stuff, brands. Yep. Like Courtney DeWalter is probably getting everything for free. Yeah. So like, I don't know. It's just interesting because I also think that I never really followed the sport of running until recently.
Do you?
I do more closely now.
This whole Grand Slam thing you watched and everything?
I didn't watch it, but I see the clips, right? And I know what it is.
Yeah.
Like, that's how bad I am. I'm not like glued to my TV watching all that. But a lot of people are. And so I'm like, see, like this isn't, I just don't think that's such an interesting question because for brands, it's like you want, Sally who's training for the marathon to buy your shoes. Yep. Everybody who's really into the sport already has all their stuff.
Yes.
I don't know.
Santino asked me, he's like, so are you reading like all the runfluencers and the running stuff. And I'm like, dude, zero time. Like I spend 0 seconds. Like I don't know anything about the Grand Slam thing. I don't know anything about T100, which is a triathlon event. Like I don't know
Okay, I was
anything
like-
about that stuff. Like I have zero clue
Yeah.
about it because Joe Smith and Jane Smith, who are racing at Ironman Wisconsin or wherever, running the, the Paducah Marathon, like I'm interested in them. I want to know more about them and
Yes.
less about the event. Look, I've run Western States. Fantastic event. All the hoopla is everything you can possibly imagine it to be. My enjoyment wasn't from knowing that Courtney and Jim Walmsley were on the course at the same time. By the way, I beat Courtney. She DNF'd. I didn't. I'm
Boom.
1-0 against her.
I love that.
It was the people that I was running with. We were in, 188th place or whatever we were in. Maybe not even that high up. I have no idea where we were. Like, those are the people I was surrounded by. And those are the people that mattered to me in those moments when we're trudging up a hill or we're running across No Hands Bridge or whatever it is that we're doing, Those are the
Yeah.
people that intrigue me. Those are the people that I want to hang out with and talk to.
Right. You're like, and no offense, Courtney, but my friend Kelby, who like qualified for the Olympic trials while she was pregnant, is more impressive to me because she also had a full-time job at the time and her husband was deployed.
Yeah.
Like that is not her job to do.
I wish,
you know?
I wish they would. So one of the things we do when we talk to brands and they're like, we'd love our ambassadors or elites to be on your shows. I tell them, look, there are going to be 0 questions about how fast they run or how far they run or how fast they swim or how far they swim or how fast they ride or how far they ride because I just don't care. What I'm interested
Yeah.
in is their lives and their personalities and who they are. And we're going to go down those paths and we're going to investigate and have fun with that stuff. And if they're not comfortable with that, that's okay. They don't have to be on the show.
Yeah.
And for the most part, brands they're like, no, our people want to talk about that stuff. But I wonder if like a person like, if you flip it, if you're Jim Walmsley or Courtney DeWalter or Daniela Reef and you have to protect your personal brand so that you can keep getting paid by these brands to be a professional athlete so you don't let on as much about who you are outside of the course. And so that's a razor's edge, right? And so I wonder if if the feeling is I have to protect my personal brand, so I'm not going to tell them about the fact that, I had 7 beers, the day before the race or whatever it might be.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love all that. I could talk to you all day about this. But I have to ask you the end of the podcast questions.
Yes, let's hit it.
Okay. I have 2. They're pretty easy, I think. The first one is your favorite running song and or mantra.
So I have 2 mantras. One is all gas, no brakes, and relentless forward motion. Those are my 2 mantras. A third one has sort of creeped in thanks to Adam at Community Trail Running because, show up and blow up is a really good one too, right? Like, again, we talk about the DNF concept and it's like, look, man, some days I got it and some days I don't. And I won't know if I got it unless I give it my all. So I'm not going to hold back. My wife does say, Lori does say, like I'm one of the only people, if not the only person she knows that can not only say it, but then actually live it. And so like, I just keep going and ignore the pain until I literally run out of gas. And sometimes that's, at the finish line and sometimes that's well before the finish line. It happens.
Yeah. Oh, those are so good.
Favorite running song is really hard because I've only started getting into music recently, thanks to our What's in Your Earbuds podcast. But
Right. I was going to say, some people don't listen to music. So then
yeah,
it's like, well,
I don't listen to music when I run whatsoever. But I will say this. So Joe challenged me to listen to one song for as long as I can on a 1-mile loop. And I was at Bountiful at the end of last year, and I had registered for the 6-hour race. And we let the audience pick the song, and they chose Dance Monkey. And so I listened to Dance Monkey for 4 hours on a 1-mile loop, which is pretty damn impressive to me. And so
that is, yeah, I'm playing it in my head right now. Dance for me, dance for me. You're like,
exactly.
Oh my God.
After a while, you
that's a
tune
tough
it
one.
out. You don't hear it after.
As long as it's not the Kids Bop version.
No, it
okay?
wasn't. It
Because
wasn't.
that would have been real brutal.
So I'll put Dance Monkey as the song that I would be listening to.
Good. Perfect. I'll put it on the playlist. At least it's not a horrible song, but like 4 hours, it goes to show that you don't need music.
You don't.
Like, you'll just let it fade in the background.
Yeah.
And then you're in the zone. It's fine.
And here's the thing, right? So for me, like running is my time, me time. And I get it. People want, they listen to music. but I just don't want to be distracted by anything. I don't want to have anything near me. I want to hear nature. I want to hear leaves crunching under my feet. I want to hear birds chirping. If I'm running in the city here, I want to hear horns honking and sirens blaring as they go by, because I feel like that grounds me and connects me to the world, where, you're spending 8, 10, 12 hours behind a laptop or a phone, and you kind of get disconnected from people. And so I want to be out amongst people. And so I typically don't listen to music.
Yeah, I've been working on it. I ran my first marathon without music last year. And yeah, this morning I went for like a 4.5 mile run, no music. I usually don't. If I do listen, it's usually podcasts or like a way to get content, because I just don't have enough time in the day to like consume all the content I want to consume. But yeah.
You're a treadmill runner, right?
I do like my treadmill a lot.
So are you running on the treadmill more today without music or still with music?
Well, so on the treadmill, I'll watch TV.
Okay, yeah.
Like going back to our,
too.
conversation earlier about watching a lot of TV, I will watch like Love is Blind, like give me the trash TV. I will watch it there and not feel as guilty about watching it because I'm on my treadmill. But yeah, I almost went today on the treadmill because it's really hot here today. It's finally summer. And I was like, oh, I could just watch 9 Perfect Strangers is what I'm watching right now. It's the 2nd season with Nicole Kidman. It's a great show. And so I'll be like, oh, I could get in an episode of that if I run on the treadmill. But I was like, it's a nice day. Like, get your ass out in the sun and listen to the birds chirp, for God's sakes.
What's your favorite trash TV show?
I wouldn't call this trash, but it is reality. And that would be Love on the Spectrum. I just discovered.
Okay.
And if you haven't watched it, you have to. I don't know how it'd feel as a guy to watch it, but I just loved it so much. Like it's these people that are, they're autistic and there's just no filter there.
Yeah.
That's how they operate. They just say what and it's just so refreshing, so funny. And I loved the season that I watched, and so much so I went back to watch the first season. So I would recommend that to anybody who's listening as kind of an interesting one for sure. What about you?
We'll put that on the playlist. I am a huge fan of Rehoboth, The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I can't get enough of it. I just can't get enough of it.
That is hilarious. I do not watch that. I am sorry, but I have a good friend who's like into all of those.
We need to connect so that she and I can, or he and I can chit chat depending on who the person is.
Yeah. It's so funny. Okay. And now 2nd question is, what is your next finish line or milestone?
I'll be racing Javelina at the end of this year in October.
That's cool.
So that hopefully will be the next finish line. I realized, so I did a race in April. I ran a 50 miler in April, and it took me like 2.5 weeks to recover. And I realized like I don't want to go through that process of losing training time during recovery. So in between now and Javelina, I might drop in 1 or 2 half trail marathons but definitely not a 50 miler. Like it'll take away too much from training, but on the books right now, Javelina 100 at the end of this year.
Okay. So you're doing the 100 miler
Yes.
in that race. The Javelina has different distances, right?
Correct.
Okay. So they have like what does it start at? Like a 50K?
I believe I believe they have a 50K and they have a 50 miler and then a 100K and a
100K, 100 mile. Okay. See, I'm like starting to learn more about the ultra world because that's how I got interested in Ohm, because he's like, yeah, I ran an ultra marathon on Everest. And I was like, what? That's a thing?
Yeah.
Like, and then you realize, so go listen to that episode if you haven't yet.
Episode 12.
Because it's wild. Episode 12. I don't know. I was still learning then, but I should go listen to that. To your point, like, I do need to do a better job of bringing older episodes back because so many of the stories are just amazing.
Yeah. So we started every Sunday. We have a From the Vault series now.
Yes, I like that. I should do that.
We pull out old episodes and get people interested in past guests.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Jason. I really love talking to you. No surprise. And when are we going to get you to Indiana? Because Joe's here. Yeah. Come see Joe.
We had a lot of people up there, so I definitely have to make my trip to Indiana. I'll be as close as Chicago this summer. I don't know how close that is to you, but we'll be in Chicago.
That's not that far. It's 3 hours. I'll be in Chicago a couple times. Well, August and then once in September.
Yeah, we're doing sort of like a northeast trip. I'm pacing at the Vermont 100. And then we'll be in Boston for a few days, and then we'll go to New York City for a few days, and then we'll be in Chicago for a few days before heading back to LA.
Oh, that's awesome. What a great trip. We'll enjoy that.
Thank you. This has been a blast.
So fun. I love this, everything. So thank you. Always cheering for you, and just so glad that I know you.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yep. And thank you to everybody who has listened, and happy running. If you enjoyed this week's episode of Finish Lines and Milestones from Sandy Boy Productions, please go share, rate, review. Like Jason said in today's podcast, drop a comment, and I would really appreciate it. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm Allie, ALOYT Brett, BRETT, Allie T Brett _runs. Hope you're here next week.